You guys go ahead.
Any update on Robert Woods' situation in terms of his availability?
There's no update. He's still handling that personal matter, and we'll probably have a little bit more of an update on that later on in the week.
Brandin Cooks, do you expect that he'll play this week?
We do. Yeah, he's been in great spirits. He's been in good shape. So the anticipation is that he will be able to play this week.
How did you guys come out of last night's game, just injury-wise?
Came out pretty good. Your typical bumps and bruises, but the tight ends that were banged up going into it, they came out in good shape. And for the most part, Brock had his little elbow deal, but he ended up coming back into the game. So it was as healthy as we've come out of a game with all the guys that did play. Yeah, I think it was probably just more of just catching his wind. He was good.
What was the Brockers?
He just irritated his elbow. Not exactly sure what it was, but he, as soon as I went out there, he was like, I think probably one of those deals where it kind of just scares you initially more than anything, and once you kind of settle in, you realize, all right, you're okay. And he came back and he did a great job to finish it out.
Out there for every injury, so you must have had reason to think it was.
Usually, if a guy stays down there, usually I end up going out there just to make sure they're okay and just kind of check on them. So that was the case. And as soon as we got out there, you felt pretty good just based on the feedback he was able to give to us.
You mentioned last week that Rob Havenson was going to miss this last game.
Mm-hmm.
Could be more.
Yep.
What's his status for this week?
Yeah, I would say he's probably going to be doubtful for this week. He is making good progress. To have a finite answer on exactly when he'll play a week from today is difficult. But I think, the anticipation just originally with that injury was that it's probably going to be a couple weeks. And that would, most likely, that's why he'll most likely be doubtful. But, you don't want to rule him out quite yet.
Jared Goff said that was one of his favorite wins as a Ram. Do you relate to what he's thinking?
Yeah, any win is a good win, and we'll certainly take that. And it was the most recent one, so it was certainly a fun one. But I think all the things that went on and the way that our team continues to stick together, through the good, through the bad, and all those different types of things. I think the mental toughness, the resilience that they, really embody and personify is something that I think is really powerful. And I love the way that our guys just hung tough. I love the way that yesterday provided a lot of opportunities for guys that didn't expect to be in some of the positions they were in last night to show that the game's not too big for them. And I love the way we found a way to win as a team, which is always the goal.
It seemed like a case of you and players adjusting to circumstances.
Yep.
Less than ideal circumstances. Are there things that happened yesterday that do sort of translate to future games, or was it a one-off situation?
I think it's a combination of both. Obviously when you end up having a late, adjustment because of something that occurred with a player that's a big-time contributor, but then you always talk about, how do you want to win games as a team? What do we feel like the best way to put all three phases together? And I think what we're all learning is that, the ways that we do that with this year's team is maybe different than what we've seen. And the most important thing is what's the best way as this team, for this team, to be able to win football games. And I think that's something that we're continuing to learn. And each week, based on the opponent we play, might look like a different answer in terms of the matchups. But I think yesterday was a good indicator of some things that, you might want to see moving forward. Mm-hmm.
Season. Did you guys kind of just feel a little bit like relief, or was there an extra emotion in there that came into play yesterday?
I think the guys would be better served to answer that than me. I was really pleased with just the way that the amount of different things that went on, the guys found a way to bond together and win a football game. And whether that be overcoming injuries, whether that be opportunities for some guys that hadn't played to step up, whether that be some things that are way bigger than football going on. I think there's a lot of different things. And then to get a chance to anytime that you're coming off of a disappointing outcome the previous week, especially when it was the bye, you have a tendency to feel like, man, it's been so long since we had played a good game. But because of the 2-week stretch, since we had won, because coming off the bye, then when you don't get the result you want, I think there was a lot of things that went into it, but I think the guys were pleased with the win, to answer your question.
Sean, the tight end usage, was that something you wanted to do coming in, or was that exacerbated by not having Robert?
It's a little bit of both. They do a good job of mixing some of their personnel groupings, and we wanted to be able to run the football. Some of the run concepts that we felt like would give us the best chance to be able to move the ball consistently and do some things we wanted to do against that front structure. We felt like the best way to do that would be out of the two tight end personnel grouping, and then obviously there is going to be some adjustments when one of your starting receivers that's a main contributor for you, ends up not going right before kickoff.
When you keep Khalil Mack off the stat sheet, what does that say about your tight ends and your offensive tackles, the way they play?
Yeah, it says they did a great job. He's a game wrecker. He's a special, unique player. And I thought the ability to be able to kind of consistently stay patient with the runs, consistently move the ball, and I think we've got to be better in some of those third down situations when we do run it. But I thought just the commitment overall, and then what we were able to get in terms of some of the ways that we were limited in having to throw the football outside of a few dropbacks here and there, limits really the ops that he has, and I think that's a credit to those guys that you just mentioned.
What do you remember, if anything, about Lamar Jackson when you guys had training camp practices with him, and what do you think of what he's kind of doing this year?
Yeah, well, as you're kind of just diving into the initial, part of, getting familiar with the Ravens, I think you saw a dynamic athlete. You saw a guy that was just getting used to. You think about the early stages of where you're at in your development as a rookie quarterback right in the beginning of training camp. That's a lot of stuff, that those guys are, getting accustomed to. So you could see the athleticism. But then when you look at what he's done so far, it has been impressive in terms of the ability to put pressure on defenses with it, with the way that he can beat you in a couple different ways. I think Greg Roman's done an outstanding job. They're one of the best offenses. They're on track to have less punts than anybody in the history of the league over the course of a season. I think they had 0 punts yesterday. Dynamic playmaker, builds the guys around him, have a confidence because of his swagger and confidence. He's, when he is delivering the football, he's throwing the ball accurately, and in a lot of instances, they're dictating structures because they're able to be so efficient and such a threat of the run and the pass that can come off of it.
How has Troy Hill done since he took over that starting job? And did that role kind of become increasingly difficult when you put Jalen Ramsey on the other side, knowing how many quarterbacks want to avoid Ramsey? So Troy by nature is going to be targeted a lot more.
Yeah, I think in some instances, if that's what a team wants to do, you typically say, all right, you might see a little bit more work. But I think Troy has done a great job continuing to improve. Coach Pleasant does an outstanding job with those guys as a whole, helping really to, fine-tune the fundamentals, the techniques. Troy's always had the skill set in terms of, his lateral agilities, his just body control, overall speed. And I think you're seeing him play at a really high level. He ends up having a pick yesterday. He gets a sack on the one that gets flushed out on the sideline. He's making tackles. I think he's playing really good football right now. And really, I thought our secondary as a whole did a great job last night. To minimize, where you talk about the most biggest gain they had was on a 19-yard gain where we ended up dropping a coverage responsibility and a man pressure we had. I think that's a real credit to those guys, and I thought it was a real positive to see David Long play his first extensive action. 15 snaps, did a great job, and that's a reflection of those guys on the back end with Coach E and Coach Aubrey doing a great job coaching those guys up.
As great as the defense has been, how much harder is the challenge against Baltimore?
Well, I think, when you look at just the production that they've had offensively, it is going to get increasingly difficult, but I think that's something that you embrace as a competitor. I know our guys will be excited about the challenge and the opportunity to compete against one of the best and most productive offenses in the league this year.
Sean, when your defense is playing that well, does it change or impact anything that you do as a play caller in terms of, as long as we don't make a mistake here, the defense probably, has this game under control or handle on it?
Yeah, it certainly does. And really, because at the end of the day, the goal is to win the football game. And regardless of how you end up doing it, a win is a win. Now, certainly that doesn't mean you don't want to be efficient and operate with consistency offensively, but I think it does enable you to feel like, I don't necessarily know if conservative is the word, but you want to play a smart complementary game. And I think yesterday indicated our ability to approach the game like that. But there are still some instances where, as a whole, as good as the defense played, there's some things we talked about that we expect them to do at a really high level. Same thing with the offense and the special teams. And like anything else, we expect to get better from this. And I think it's always easier to be able to teach and have guys learn from it when you do get the result that you want. But we do want to continue to focus on that process.
How was Todd Gurley feeling today when he came in? And are you inclined to kind of
last night, or is it going to be, a game by game kind of predicated?
Yeah, I think if he's feeling good, Gary, I mean, that's what you want, and obviously that was the most work that he got this season. I think the thing that we had discussed that you guys, we talked about it last week, don't miss the opportunity if he's feeling good and getting into the flow like he was in Pittsburgh. And I think, more than anything, he can really draw on that, feel good. And so, yes, if that's something that he continues to feel good with, his body responds the right way, which every inclination that I have is he's feeling good. That is something that, you'd like to see, because when the ball's in Todd's hands, good things happen. And I love as much as anything the way he responded after what happened on the first touch.
After watching the film, what stuck out to you about the way the offensive line played?
Just physical, you saw a lot of downhill direct runs. I just thought that, you could feel, especially for a lot of guys making their first extended action, wasn't too big, going against a great front with a bunch of different playmakers on that front. I just thought they played with a consistent physicality, toughness, the way they were finishing. I thought there was a good energy in and out of the huddle, and obviously, able to keep Jared clean where he wasn't getting hit. And, they did a very, very good job. And I thought Coach Cromer's guidance, and then, you talk about Andrew Whitworth's leadership, Austin Blythe's command at the center spot, those two big guards, and then Bobby Evans doing a nice job stepping in at the right tackle position.
How do you go about trying to simulate Lamar Jackson's mobility and some of the different option concepts they run in practice this week, because it's so different from what you see most of the time?
That's a hell of a question. That is something that we've started to discuss as a group with our defensive staff. It's hard to find somebody that has the skill set, in terms of the athleticism to put the pressure on your defense, but then can also throw the football. So those are some things that we're working through. But typically you'd like to say, all right, is it maybe even something where you explore a really unique athlete that can throw it, or, because you don't want it to be so predictable if you just put a guy in there. But, we've got some guys that might be capable of mimicking and emulating him, but he is certainly the man and playing at this rate for a reason. It's hard to truly do that.
Understanding you can't say much more about Robert, are you concerned for his well-being, or is that not an issue?
No, we feel good. He's in a good place. And we feel good about where the situation is at, and his well-being, and that's very, very important to us. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rob.
See you, man.
You too.